Shabbat Shalom. 46 of us traveled to Israel together in December. I see a lot of you here. Another 70 congregants will be going in March. I see a lot of you here. 35 birthright young adults are in Israel now with a member of our senior staff, and I see some parents of those here. Altogether, around 150 people will have traveled to Israel under the auspices of Stephen Wise within a 3-month period. Not bad. Not bad at all. For those of you who haven't signed up yet, what are you waiting for? There's still room to join us in March. The upcoming mission is going to be special. We're adding an entire parallel component, a new terrific itinerary for those who have been to Israel before. We had a grand adventure. It was a quest, there and back again. I want to take you with me tonight to 3 places on our journey. The first destination was Tel Aviv. We go to Tel Aviv first to dispel any lingering impression that Israel is a land of camels and bazaars. In Tel Aviv, your senses are overwhelmed with the miracle of modern Israel. You see it, but not only that, you feel it. The hits just keep on coming. Wave after wave of emotions come crashing down on you. Feelings of wonder, amazement, awe, admiration at what has been accomplished here. Senses are awakened in you that you didn't even know you still had. Feelings of long-lost Jewish belonging. A dormant pride. I am part of this people, a people that created all of this. Had my parents or grandparents or great-grandparents turned east rather than west, I would have ended up here too. There was nothing here 100 years ago. Nothing. We show the pictures to the participants. Several pioneers standing on land, on sand dunes, parceling out land that would become modern Tel Aviv, one of the great and liberal metropolises of the world. The numbers of geniuses nurtured here, the Nobel Prize winners, the brilliant authors, the world-class musicians, the great universities, the amazing scientists and medical centers, the high-tech entrepreneurs who have changed the world. It just boggles the mind. Tel Aviv is pulsating vitality. Tel Aviv is ingenuity. Tel Aviv is energy. Tel Aviv is restless talent. Tel Aviv is life in living color. It's like stepping out of the black and white of Kansas into the brilliant technicolor of Oz. There's a palpable love of life that bubbles up from the pavement. You don't know what it is at first, but you sense something different here. The energy, the vitality, the creativity. Israelis embrace life with voracious abandon. They love life. They rejoice in life. They reject defeat, despair, disillusion, and death. Even Israel's enemies know it. They think it makes Israelis weak. Hamas warned Israel, "We will defeat you because we love death more than you love life." You keep on feeling it. Hour after hour, day after day. It just washes over you and baffles you. How is all this possible? What primal energies percolate and erupt in these people who have so many daily challenges? Israelis have the 6th highest life expectancy in the world. Israelis ranked 11th in the world on the most recent happiness index. No one needs to feel sorry for Israelis. They themselves harbor no self-pity. There is an infectious can-do spirit. Look at the White City, prosperous, free, hopeful. Look at what a people can do with a sliver of territory and an opportunity for self-determination. To spend Shabbat in Tel Aviv, to stroll the promenade in the promised land by the sea, the gentle breezes flowing in from beyond the horizons of Jewish history, is to feel a sense of Jewish ease and contentment that no Jew has experienced ever, or at least in the last 2,000 years. We then traveled north. We stood on the Golan Heights at the border of Syria, 2 miles away, as the birds fly. But the birds don't fly to Syria now. It's too dangerous, even for them. It was one of the saddest moments of my life. Literally, every 30 seconds we could hear the bombs exploding or the artillery fired. Every explosion permanently shattered limbs, destroyed lives, and devastated homes. We could withstand only 7 minutes at the peak because we were freezing. The brutal winter winds howling in our faces, blowing in the agony of death and the stench of decay directly into our nostrils. We breathed into our bodies the sufferings of the Syrians. And down below, there was nowhere to go. No place to retreat, no home, or even a warm bus to rest and recover for a moment. We were here, they were there, and there was nothing we could do, and there was nothing they could do. And it dawned on me that this would be our fate too. The 46 of us standing on the peak overlooking Syria. Were it not for the enormous investment in safety and security that renders it impossible for now for anyone to cross on foot those 2 miles as the birds fly, if they would fly. It's so close that Israeli soldiers who serve on Mount Hermon and who dined with us one evening told us that they literally see the whites of the eyes of the combatants, measuring their movements and grading their fighting capacity. Let's be honest. What we call the world community, world opinion, doesn't really care about the sufferings of the Syrians, or at least not enough to put an end to their misery. National interest trumps humanitarian interest. Enmity defeats empathy. Killing strangles kindness. Israel built a field hospital right on the border that treats wounded Syrians. If we get security clearance, I'll take you there when we're there in March. Israeli hospitals treat Syrians in need. We will visit one of these hospitals in March. Sometimes the wounded are rushed unconscious from Syria and wake up to find themselves in a hospital bed in Israel, of all places. Around the world, there are plenty of crocodile tears, enough to fill a small lake. But it is the unfortunate truth that in the Middle East, the weak get devoured. I wish it were not so. I wish that all those learned professors in universities were right. I wish that the eminent scholars of the American Studies Association were right. I wish that all those righteous and self-righteous moral exemplars, I wish that they were right and I were wrong. And with a little goodwill or compromise, the lion could lie down with the lamb in the land of the prophets. And if not this, At the very least, I wish that they were right, that some act that Israel refrains from doing that justifies boycotts, divestment, and sanctions could be done, or some act that Israel perpetrates could be halted, and that would make all the difference. I don't want to be strong. I'm sick of being strong. I just want to be a rabbi. I just want to study the philosophy of peace and the Torah of human dignity. I just want to lead my life without worrying about existential conflict. I don't want to hold a gun. But the sad reality is that if the sword is dropped, Tel Aviv falls. The sad reality is that today, if you are standing on practically any Israeli border, looking in any direction, 2 miles away, there is savagery, brutality, depravity, barbarity, inhumanity, and criminality, the likes of which we in the West find hard to even fathom. There is chaos as far as the eye can see. The post-World War I order that the British and the French were so proud of creating, the countries that they spawned in Churchill's map room, are crumbling. Human nature is returning the Levant to its original state of nature. Tribes, sects, and fiefdoms. The only permanent structure, the only stable initiative in the Middle East that emerged from the rubble of the post-World War I order is the Zionist movement and the State of Israel. And then, finally, Jerusalem, the city on the hill, the mountain air as intoxicating as wine. We stood at the continuation of the western wall of the temple near Robinson's Arch, the remnants of an archway discovered by a 19th century American archaeologist named Edward Robinson, where our ancestors climbed from the valley to the mountain of God. The arch must have been magnificent back then. But it's not what catches my attention. I'm always drawn to the pile of boulders strewn at that place. Archaeologists almost cleared them out until they realized that these were boulders that the Romans heaved down from the burning temple on the day that they set fire to God's home. If you look carefully, you can still see the black soot, the charred remnants of that awful day. And there, these boulders lay, just as they did on the day that the temple was destroyed. Josephus, the Jewish historian who lived through that day, wrote this: "As the flames went upward, the Jews made a great clamor, such as so mighty an affliction required, and ran together to prevent it. And now they spared not their lives any longer, nor suffered anything to restrain their force, since the holy house was perishing." One would have thought that the hill itself on which the temple stood was seething, hot as full of fire on every part of it. The fires have now cooled from that seething hill. Titus was the Roman general who set the city ablaze and scattered our people to the four corners of the world. They glorified him for this in Rome and eventually crowned him emperor. They held a victory parade, dragging chained Jewish leaders in front of the crazed crowds. They too built an arch in Rome, a different kind of arch. They called it the Arch of Titus. You can still see it in the Forum across the street from the Colosseum. One of its victory panels portrays the destruction that Titus wreaked in Jerusalem and the looting of the temple menorah, the very symbol of Jewish sovereignty. If only these boulders could talk, what stories they could tell. The stories of 1,000 years of Jewish civilization, a millennium of creativity and vitality that literally changed the world. All of these modern Western faiths emerged from our people at that time. The contemporary world's sense of justice and rightness and ethics and propriety are based on the very principles forged by our ancestors in this small place. If only these boulders could talk. They would tell not only the sad stories of the blood that ran down like rivers through the valleys of Jerusalem, they would tell not only of the tears and the suffering and the exile of our people, they would also tell a newer story, a story of how this persecuted people left for dead has arisen from the ashes and has come home. We uncovered those ancient boulders that Titus heaved down from the mountain, the remnants of the fire still blackening their veneer. Titus's rubble. The Jews are alive. We have built the white city and rebuilt the ancient homeland. You're part of this story. Find your place in this story. It is the greatest story in the history of the world. You do not have to disappear just because studies show that half of us will not be Jewish some few decades from now. The modern prophecies might come true. After all, they're based on scientific methods. But they do not have to be true for you. You have it in your hands to keep the Jewish soul alive in you and in your offspring and their descendants. And I've always embraced as my first and most important responsibility to you to push, cajole, and even to anger you, to provoke you. Yes, to comfort the afflicted, but to afflict all those who are all too comfortable. To connect you with your authentic Jewish selves. Now, some of you might not like it. All this pushing and cajoling. Some of you might disagree with me. You might even be offended from time to time. What do I know? Modern Americans get offended very quickly. But I much prefer the approach of Psalm 15, attributed to King David. God, who may sit in your tent, who may dwell in your holy mountain? The one who speaks the truth in his heart. Get on the plane. It's only 4.5 additional hours from London. 4 hours after Paris. 3 after Geneva. 2 after Athens. Get on the plane. Come with us. There's still room in March to join the 70 others. We've made room for you. Or resolve to come the next time. You, your partners, your children, and your friends in the community. It is your inheritance. It is your birthright. Presented to you on a silver platter. And the land grows still, the red eye of the sky slowly dimming over smoking frontiers as the nation arises, torn at heart but breathing, to receive the miracle, the only miracle. There will be no other. Dressed in battle gear, dirty, shoes heavy with grime, they ascend the path quietly, full of endless fatigue and unrested. Yet the dew of their youth is still on their head. Then A nation in tears and amazement will ask, "Who are you?" And they will answer quietly, "We are the silver platter on which the Jewish state was given." Thus they will say and fall back in shadows, and the rest will be told in the Chronicles of Israel.
Thank you.